Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. We're going to take a look at the Space Wolves range and see if there's a potential refresh in the near future. They've got plenty of firstborn units and they're still the standard units for the Space Wolves army. There's an awful lot of Primaris units there that are available. The Wolfguard Terminator unit is still in the old scale Terminators, even though they still look cool because they've got all those additional bits and pieces on them. They do look slightly out of size when next to normal Terminators now. They've got very few Primaris models, with only one of them being a character, and the majority of the characters are still in resin, which isn't great. First up, we've got the Black Wolf himself, the Wolf Lord Ragnar Blackmane. He's their only Primaris character unit. He comes in with quite a dynamic pose, he's looking quite threatening, and he will not have a new model in the near future. We'll be with him for a long time to come. Next up, we've got the Great Wolf, Chapter Master Logan Grimnar, and this is the version that is on foot. That is actually quite hard to come by at the moment. It's quite an old model. He does still have a data sheet, so he is still available to field on the battle top. He's not the most dynamic looking model at the moment. It's lacking in a bit of detail as well as size. I can really imagine them re-releasing both versions of them, but primarily the one on the foot does need a massive upgrade because he is a really old model. With him being in Terminator armor, he does look very small next to the new true scale Terminator, so it'd be nice for him to have a little bit of an upgrade. As well as we know that you don't have to cross the Rubicon to have the Terminator armor, so they don't have to force him to cross either, which is quite nice really, because you can keep him just as a firstborn unit. If we're getting a new version of him on foot, then we really do need a new version of him with Storm Rider, with the Chariot. I've got to say, I do hate this model. I don't think it makes much sense at all, especially on the battle top. I'm not a massive fan of there being wolves. I think they've gone way too far into the wolfy range rather than staying a bit more Viking-like. I'd prefer them to, if they were even going to do this, put them on a Thunderwolf Cavalry. I think it'll look a bit cooler than on a Chariot. It really looks out of place on the battle top and is a little bit too much Age of Sigmar really. It's not the oldest of models, but if you are making them true scale, then you do really need to refresh this model as well. We're going to stick with the named characters and go over to the Trickster, Lucas Strifeson. I think he's still a cool looking model. He does look slightly dated, but if they do refresh him, I do hope they keep him a lot like he is now, just in more of the new Tacticus armor. The old style lightning claws like that are much cooler than the new ones. I'm not a big fan of the lightning claws where they're just holding on to what's essentially a metal knuckle duster. I do prefer the old version where it's more like claws. Unfortunately, I do think he is probably one of the ones that's going to be more likely to become a legend rather than a new model, which will be a shame. Next, we have the Tempest that walks, Rune Priest Nal Stormcaller. He's exactly how you would expect a Storm Priest to look. I think the model is still fantastic, and it just needs that true scale added to him in the Terminator armor. We don't currently have a Rune Priest and Terminator armor that's available to buy. So he is the only one that fills the role really. I think he's still a great model. He's just a little bit on the short side really. And when they replace him, hopefully they give us a Rune Priest and Terminator armor as well. I can't see them not replacing him because it would be nice to have a named character as one of the Rune Priests. Next we have the Man Mountain himself, Aryak Rockfist. He's the leader of the Wolf Guard. Again, this is a fantastic model. I think when they produced all these models originally, they really caught the essence of Space Marines, the Space Wolf range really, that they did have all the trinkets on them. They were very Viking looking, and it's before they got a bit too wolfy, so they did have like pelts and wolf heads, but they weren't leaning too much into, these are just the wolfy guys. I think he was made slightly bigger than the other Terminators though, because he is meant to be a naturally massive man, and he does look like he's quite wide and girthy on the tabletop, so he doesn't look too outstanding, so they might leave him for the moment because he doesn't look too small next to the normal Terminators. You can just put a couple of tactical rocks in there and it'll probably be okay, so I can see them just either sending him to Legends or just leaving him in the range for now. Next we have Canis Wolfborn, which is a Wolf Lord on Thunder Wolf Cavalry. He does look slightly dated. He looks very small on top of that wolf as well, and quite rigid in his posing. He needs to be a little bit more dynamic. I'm going to say it's probably not a great idea to be dual wielding lightning claws whilst riding a wolf. It probably needs to at least lose one of those and have a hand on the rein and just be a little bit more dynamic. I imagine they might just make the new Wolf Lord on Thunder Cavalry because they really do need to resize those Marines, and then just have this as an option that you can do from the kit as well. So it probably would be replaced at some point in the future, or it might just be moved into Legends and get away from the dual-wielding Lightning Claws on a Thunderwolf Cavalry. Apart from that Black Templar unit, we don't really have any types of Lightning Claws in the Primaris range, so we might lose it completely. Next up, we have the Guardian of the Sons of Rust, the old man himself, Ulrich the Slayer. Now, I do quite like the model. He's slightly rigid looking, but I do like the skull that he's holding. He doesn't probably fit in with how the army looks at the moment, especially with the paint scheme. He just stands out a little bit on the odd size, although I do like the model. Unfortunately, I think this is another one that probably would more go towards the legendary range rather than getting a new model himself, or just remain in play for the moment. Possibly more as just a when they do the rotation of characters sometimes, where they come in and out of being able to order them. Next up, we have Dragon Gaze, Wolf Lord Crom. This guy comes with a substantial amount of detail. It's quite a dynamic pose as well. He doesn't look too out of scale from the looks of it. Unfortunately, he is a little bit more on the short side. If they're looking at reproducing some of the older kits, like the Grey Hunters and that, they do need someone to join them as an epic character. So I can see them probably making him. He's got a cool name, comes with that ice axe, which looks awesome. And he's quite a nice looking character. We've got a couple of Dreadnought characters to come through now. And we've got Bjorn Fell-Handed. He's the last from the company of Russ, so he's around during the time when Leman Russ was leading the chapter. Now, they couldn't do a refresh without bringing Bjorn a whole new character. Now, whether they would make him Redemptor scale in the new Brutalis Dreadnought potentially, I can't really see that myself. They do say that when you put a Space Marine into a Primaris Redemptor, it burns them out quite quickly. And Bjorn isn't someone that you want to really burn out and go crazy. He's there to help lead the wolves and keep them in line of what Russ's teachings were. So I could probably see more of a whole new Dreadnought chassis for him rather than becoming a Redemptor. But if they did have a refresh, they definitely couldn't leave Bjorn behind. They would have to create a new version of him. Next up, we have Murderfang, who is a Wolfen Dreadnought. Now, we don't have a primary scale Wolfen Dreadnought, but going back to what we said about Bjorn, about them being burnt out, I can see them maybe put them in a Brutalis Dreadnought because they are there just to aid the chapter and come in with their ferocity. And a slightly crazy and burnt out Wolfen isn't really going to affect the chapter too much. And being Wolfen, it might even aid them a little bit more. I'm not sure whether they would redo Murderfang, but they will probably do a Wolfen Dreadnought. So if they either had a dual kit where you could build him, like they are doing with a lot of the kits now, where they've got dual purpose, that would be really cool. It'd be a shame to lose him. Next, we have the Wolf Lord on a Thunderwolf. Now, this model is also used for Harold Deathwolf as well, because he doesn't currently come with an option, so most people use him like that. I can't see him gaining a new model considering he doesn't have his own to begin with anyway. But if we do get a refresh of the Thunderwolf Cavalry, we will need a leader to go along with it that fits the size and scale. So I can really see this model being redone as well. You couldn't really redo Space Wolves without the Thunderwolf Cavalry because they are quite iconic looking and they're completely different to what the rest of the Space Marines have. Next up, we have the Rune Priest in Tactical Armor. If we do get refresh, we will get another one of these now in Primaris Scale and Tacticus Armor, just so he's the right size. Hopefully they make him a little bit more Rune Priest looking. This guy just looks like your standard veteran for Space Wolves. Hopefully they add some trinkets, some runes on the armor, more to make him stand out as what he should be, is essentially a librarian. Next, we have the Iron Priest in Tactical Armor. I'm not actually sure whether they would renew this one. I think they might just go more down the lines of here's the Tech Marine and we're going to bring out a whole new upgrade sprue for Space Wolves, because the current one's very lacking. And if they bring out a new one, it'd be very easy to convert some of these characters into their own bespoke one. Now, the Rune Priest is a bit different from the Librarians because they serve a slightly different purpose and have a different feel to them anyway. But the Iron Priest is essentially just a Tech Marine with a couple of extra bits added on. Next up, we have the Rune Priest and Terminator armor. This one isn't currently for sale, and this is a very old model. It is a metal model back in the 2nd and 3rd edition. Now, it's quite an iconic looking what you expect a Rune Priest to be in Terminator armor as well, and it's a shame that they haven't reimagined this along the way. Now, with the new Terminators coming out, and we've had multiple new characters released, being the Chaplain, the Librarian, and the Captain, and then with the Dark Angels coming out, and them getting Belial, as well as their own Terminators to go along with it, I can really see them adding additional characters to go along the way. At the very least, an upgrade sprue that has a couple of bits and pieces to make a Rune Priest would be really cool to add to the current Terminator Librarian. Only a little bit of modification will make him look a little bit more Space Wolfy, so it's not out of this world if they don't, but it'd be really nice to have a bespoke model anyway. Next up, we have the Blood Claws, which are the young pups. These are the guys in between being a tactical marine and a scout, so they're the newly promoted marines that are quite inexperienced, green around the ears, and need to go out and get some experience, complete some of their own sagas, to then move up in the world and become a grey hunter. If they are going to redo the range, then they definitely need to be looking at the old style troop choices such as the Blood Claws, and they will need a new set. I can imagine them doing a cross set with the Grey Hunters, where you can build them in either direction, such as they do with the Incursors and Infiltrators. Then we have the Grey Hunters, which are the tactical marines. They're the slightly more veteran troop choices for the Space Wolves. Again, like I said, I think these will get an upgrade, and they really could do with being in the same box as the Blood Claws. I think they're more likely to happen like that than anything else. I can't really see them creating two of their own different, slightly similar units just to add a bit of flavour. So they might just have an upgrade sprue that allows you to convert intercessors or the likes of those, just to make them a little bit more wolfy. Next, we have the Long Fangs, which are essentially the Devastator Marines of the Space Wolves. There's not really a Primaris equivalent for them at the moment. Maybe Desolation Marines, they might turn them into their own style of unit for them. I can't really see it myself. You've got Hellblasters that serve a kind of similar niche as they do. Fortunately, they're just not a heavy weapon tacticus squad available at the moment. Whether they're going to create one for them will be interesting. We haven't really seen many heavy weapons in the Primaris range, so it'll be interesting if they do that and then roll it out for the other chapters, which would be really cool. But they might be one of the ones that get kicked to Legends, or just are made with a different purpose than you'd actually want them to be. We've got the Sky's Claws next, which are the Assault Marines. As we all know, Assault Marines with jump packs have been moved into Legends, but we do have the new jump packed Assault Intercessors. So we already have their variation out there for the rest of the chapters now. So they could just ship that with an upgrade sprue to make them a bit more wolfy, and you've got the Sky Claws there right away. I kind of imagine that since it just serves the same role, they might just put it into Legends and just say use the jump assault intercessors instead. I can't see them renewing every kit they've got, especially when it's just a minor variation of the Codex compliant chapters, when it is just essentially Assault Marines. Next, we have Hounds of Morkai, which is just essentially a Reavers unit, but it has your anti-psychic keyword attached to it with a couple of different abilities. This is one of the new Primaris kits, so this will stay as it is really. Next, we have Thunderwolf Cavalry. As I've said, I don't really like this unit. I think it goes a bit too wolfy. It just doesn't make any sense having Space Marines ride into battle on the back of a wolf. It just looks a bit silly and is a bit too Age of Sigmar-y for me. It's not a massively old kit, but it does look very much out of scale to Primaris Marines, so I can imagine they would refresh this kit. I can't see them getting rid of the kit entirely, so it will get a refresh and come out at some point in the future. Next, we have the Fenrisian Wolves. I can't really see them redoing this. They might as well just leave the kit as it is. There's only so much you can do with a wolf model. Now, they did redo the Kroot Hounds, but the Kroot Hounds were really terrible looking previously, and they've kind of changed how they look, their physiology, and how they walk even, because they've changed their biology of their legs, so they more walk on the toes, the front of the toes, the knuckles, like a rhino would, rather than on feet. I can just see them leaving this kit as it is and leaving it in the range for a while. Now the Cyber Wolf, I don't think is long for this world. I think it's very strange, doesn't really serve a purpose, and has been abused in a couple of editions for what it can do and how cheap it is. It's just a very strange model to have a Space Marines army. I can see this just being made a legend and not renewed or refreshed. We've got the Wolfen, which models I don't think looks that bad. I think they're okay. The problem is if you did refresh a lot of the range, they might stand out as being a bit meh, and maybe not quite to the scale you'd want. It'd be nice if they did redo them. Maybe make them a little bit more werewolfy, knock off a bit of the armor and give them the different weapons, which is cool. I can't see them keeping them because it is going towards an iconic unit for them now, just in its looks alone, and the fact that no other Codex compliant chapter can have it. It's just one of those units that stands out being quite different from the other chapters. Next up we have the Stormwolf and the Stormfang gunships, both transport gunships available. I think they're quite cool looking. They don't really look out of place. They don't look old. They've aged quite well. I can't see them renewing these. I can see them just staying in the range for the time to come. And finally, the last model that's available within the range being the Venerable Dreadnought, the Space Wolf variation. So you can have the axe and the shield. I think it would be a shame for them to do away with this because it is a very iconic looking unit. There's not many Dreadnoughts out there that can carry a shield and an axe. It would be nice for them to reimagine it a little bit. If they are going to redo Bjorn, who I think they should, it'd be nice to have a dual kit with that, so you could have your Venerable Dreadnought. It probably needs to go in a size in between a current Venerable and a Redemptor, just basically a souped up firstborn Dreadnought really, to go along with the Redemptors. So we are rumoured with a big release coming with the Space Wolves, akin to what could potentially be the Dark Angels range. So there will be a refresh. It won't be a refresh for everything, so people will have to be patient. But more of the iconic units will see the refresh, because a lot of the other units do double up with the Primaris units, such as the what are the Grey Hunters being Tactical Marines, which is essentially intercessors. You've got the Sky Claws being intercessors with jump packs. There's a lot of crossover units there that probably don't need redoing, and an upgrade sprue will do them. Whether GW will do that, because it does like to print money, so it might just do the complete kit itself. They do have a lot of characters. This is a substantial amount there, and I can't see them redoing all of them. Some of them are redundant, and some of them just don't quite fit to how the game currently plays, so could just become legends. And they might bring out a couple of fresh ones as well, just to freshen up the range and make sure they're selling the models, because first and foremost, they are a model company at the end of the day. If you like the video, hit the like button. I'll see you next time for more grimdark action.